Hey everybody, welcome back to another Riz video. Um, we're gonna go over a roleplay review with Koshoro and Yugen over their log, The Tiger and the Bear. And I would like to first start off this video by apologizing. It's been so long since I've done anything kind of video related to DBI and the DBI Twitch streams and things like that. About a month and a half ago, I lost my voice for a very long time, and it's kind of coming in and out. So, yeah, I haven't really had a way to communicate with you guys. So, just want to get that out there. Sorry about that, but hopefully we can get back on the roll of doing more fun stuff, both on Twitch and on this YouTube channel. Luke's still doing his thing on Lux and Hemlock. So for now, just be sure you're kind of following both of us and subscribed, and we'll post these videos in the Mud Discord on the Mud G boards, so you will hopefully never miss anything. And this log, I really wanted to read it, like do a live reading of it. But as I kind of read through it the initial time, it just didn't really, it wasn't going to read as a very entertaining way. Not to say that this log is bad. This log is actually very good, very entertaining. It's not very exciting to read because it's a very combat heavy log. But it starts off, so the precursor to this is that Yugen and Koshiro kind of meet up at the Great Sunny Gates going into Nova's training sanctuary, coming from the north down the path of Odiakana, and they're kind of at like the northern edge of the training facility. And they, with a couple of other warriors and martial artists, get through the Great Sunny Gates together, and then we have this little spar between Yugen and Koshiro. And they have this really interesting point system where, and I want to get this right, so the chest is 1 point. So I'm guessing anything on the front torso is 1 point. And then if you get to the back, that's 2 points, and if you get somebody in the head, that's 3. And they're basically saying first to 10. So those are kind of the rules, and they have this I want to say they're on like this, like either fighting pit, or maybe I missed that, but I think that they're in some sort of like circle, and that's where they're fighting this in. And there's another group, Spina, who is another Saiyan, and just a group of NPCs are kind of watching. And they have just a really good fight. I mean, this is exactly what I was hoping would happen when I had the brainchild of bringing everybody to this open sanctuary, that we would get all these other players together. They would all be like-minded martial artists. They would want to do stuff like this, of just like, hey, like I'm here to train at Nova Sanctuary, but do you want to spar? Do you want to fight? And again, it just gives people something to do without Nova having to be there and interacting with every role play. And this is exactly what I wanted, right? People of different disciplines and different fighting styles kind of fighting it out. And during this log, there is a slight, I won't say discrepancy, but there is just a difference in tier. Koshiro is tier 1, kind of getting into the meat of tier 1 here, and Yugen is just teetering towards tier 1, so he's still starless, he's still tier 0 here, but he's right there on the cusp, right? And between the two of them, and even the way that it reads, Yugen is the better fighter, but Koshiro has more power. He's just kind of nascent to it. It's dormant and kind of coming out. And I think that's been his whole thing up until now, is that he doesn't really know how to control his strength that he's obtaining. Um, and it kind of reads that way in the way that Koshiro is writing his logs. I mean, he has all these really big, flashy, like spinning kicks and backflips and these flash kicks that are like he's just zipping and dipping everywhere all throughout this. And Yugen, on the other hand, though not as strong, still can show off his martial arts expertise by being like, yeah, okay, there's a lot of unnecessary movement in this move. So, I can just kind of dodge out of the way, but he's just faster and stronger. So Yugen's kind of like trying to throw these counters and use his martial arts, but because Koshiro is just naturally more gifted, it sometimes works out, it sometimes doesn't. Where, if we were to kind of break this down in like a real fight, I think without superpowers, Yugen would win this, 8 times out of 10. But with that being the difference, yeah, it makes for a good fight. And there's one thing I wanted to say about this log and about combat in general. So there is 2 types of combat that we can kind of have, maybe more, but just off the top of my head, I can think of 2. There's 2 types of combat in this log that we can kind of look at. And one of them being, there is combat that is very fun and very active on the chat channel itself, where like you're just in the moment and you're just thinking like, man, my character is going to do this really cool thing. So you go to extreme depth of emoting and placing your character and what they are doing. And I'm trying to think of where this was, but it was basically like Koshiro like goes really in depth of his movement and like where his leg was placed and how it kind of played out, like how the last round played out, and from that last round how this one plays out. And again, there's nothing wrong. It's very fun to do that, right? I think 90% of us love to role play just in that way. But this is why I didn't want to read the log after I read it again. I didn't want to do a live reading because it is just a lot of combat. And the other thing that would have made this a little bit more easy to read or made it a better log to read live would be the combat that does all that stuff but also tells a story more so than is just action, right? And ironically, the people that I'm thinking of that have this kind of combat are these two writers' other characters with the what is it? D and DBI. There it is. Those logs. So Leaf and I'm forgetting the other girl's name, but it's Khonshu and Eichenbahn's other alts. When they role play, you can literally see the characters doing things that tell like this is what the character is. Like there was the part where Leaf went to use rope to wrangle something while she was trying with her scepter and trying, like, it wasn't very effective of what she was trying to do, but it was something that the character was doing. And this log is kind of like a nice mixture of both, right? You can kind of, as you read through it, you can kind of see if you've been keeping up with the characters, that the way that they are writing these characters are very different. It's not just like, hey, I like this, I throw this punch and then I throw this kick and then I dodge here, right? It's not something that you can just take Koshiro's name off and put another character's name on and it fits. The way that you can even swap these between the two, because the way that Koshiro fights and the way that Yugen fights are very different, and it comes through on page. So there's a lot of like Koshiro's like a lot of lightning and a lot of thunder and a lot of like meta, I would almost say like special effects is going on with him, where Yugen is more of Koshiro is more anime. Yugen is more like live action kung fu flick kind of guy, right? And that's what I'm kind of getting out of it. Now he does get to flex and to just show how badass he is, where like he gets hit, but then he's just like, you know what, I have been trained in this way to dampen people's energy and to kind of cut them off from it, and he just kind of goes in on Koshiro and just kind of whoops on him a little bit, to the point where like he's even like, hey, you all right, man? Like he gets him, man, it's way down here. Yeah, I was like, hey, are you good to continue, man? Because you're getting your ass whooped a little bit. Well, he doesn't say it like that, but it's like, this is a spar. Like we don't want to kill each other here. And another nice touch is that they included the crowd in it, which made it more than just kick punch, right? Kind of taking the reader out of the tunnel vision of seeing these two fight and kind of be like, oh yeah, like they're in a crowd. There's this going on. There's that going on. So that was all nice. This is all very, very on par with what I would expect out of these two guys. And just, I think there's so many points in here that need praising. I really want to make sure that they get their praise. But it's just hard to kind of like, there's no one post in particular I was like, well, that post sticks out, other than the things that I'm highlighting. If I were to have a criticism of this log, it would be the ending right here, where so let me kind of surmise this fight. They're fighting, they're kind of even, where Koshiro's kind of getting the edge a little bit, but he's starting to get worn out. And Yugen uses his pillar style of fighting, which again is designed to shut the ki off in people, and he's also landing some pretty good clean hits. Koshiro kind of starts to push himself beyond his limits, and he has this really nice scatter shot that just completely overwhelms Yugen. He's like, yeah, I'm just not ready to fight this level of metahuman. And when he kind of comes back down to it, what takes me out of this whole fight is where Koshiro kind of gets these eyes of a killer. And I understand where it's coming from. And I actually think that this post, sending up this post, so Ko is like, well, let me back up. Yugen says I yield. Koshiro kind of has this like Rurouni Kenshin, like Batosai switch is flipped. And then in that same kind of post, one of the bystanders, Spinna, actually steps in. And even though Spinna is a Saiyan, he and Koshiro kind of recognize that, yeah, they're brothers in Saiyan blood. This NPC actually stands over Yugen, and the other NPCs kind of stand around him, being like, hey, man, like, all right, you won. He yielded. Like, you need to back off. And that was probably the best part of this log, to be perfectly honest. The best part of the log came when the other NPCs jumped in and were like, hey, like, this is done. We're not here to kill each other. We're just here to train. You need to relax. And the reason that I say that the post above it, though, because it's weird. It's like the best part of the log is also a result of the worst part of the log. And I hate to say that it's worse, but again, my criticism is I don't feel that this was the type of fight to get Ko to go to that state. And I understand it's a narrative tool, right? Like it's a narrative tool that I myself am using for one of my characters and a couple of them, of this like thirst for battle beyond, especially when they're being pushed beyond their limit. I just don't feel Ko getting that serious that he wanted to kill Yugen, or even have a sense of killing someone from this fight. I didn't feel that. I feel like the better way to display this wouldn't have been saying that it was the eyes of a killer. It was just he was being more aggressive towards someone who had already, lost. I think putting in the killer part to kind of refer back to who Koshiro was before, before meeting the kid that he met in his first logs, he who should not be named. I feel like going back into that Yakuza kind of backstory, it wasn't here. I feel like you could have hit this moment at a different point. Maybe this was like the first setup for it, but that wasn't it for me. Because I don't feel like there was ever a point where he would want to actually kill him, and to take it that far. Yeah, I think him just being a little bit more chaotic than it needed to be, and you can still have people step in, right? You can still just be like, hey man, like we're good, and then he's like, nah, like we gotta finish this. And it's like, nah man, like you're good, and he's like, yeah, okay, maybe you're right. Like he just kind of is caught up in the adrenaline, caught up in the moment, that Saiyan blood's running through him, maybe something like that. But the eyes of a killer, yeah, again, I'm not trying to harp on it. It's just that was the one thing that just kind of just didn't fit. It just didn't fit right here. It can fit and it can work elsewhere, but it just didn't fit for me right here. And again, the part where I think I said this in the last one, but the part where like Yugen as a human is relating to Koshiro the half breed, because we always relate half breed to Saiyan, and that Yugen is saying like you're also half me, you're also half human, like we're also relatives. I think is pretty awesome. And if I were to be a person training these two people at their sanctuary, I would say that I'd be very excited to interact with these two folks. I would be very excited to see the growth of these two people. Just after reading this log, I would really love to see more of the I can't remember their specific name, but basically the antagonists that have been coming after Yugen. I would love to see them pop up again. I would like to see them fight Fusen for one, just to see how he would do with this whole different types of schools. Koshiro for sure. I would also really like to see Genesis here. If there's ever a character that I felt would really benefit from being here, it's Genesis. Like if we could get Genesis and even Lai to show up, and I know it's like just a gathering of all the active role players, but those two characters in particular interacting with these two characters, kind of like old school versus new school, because whether he likes it or not, Koshiro kind of is one of the new heroes of this age. And Genesis, while he has been in a lot of big events, I don't think has really stepped into the limelight to where everybody knows who he is. And I feel like that is a character that all of the major characters should have an interaction with. And for just the way that Nigmus has described the character, God, we're getting in 20 minutes. The way that Nigmus has described the character, kind of off page, I feel like he needs to have some of that put in page outside of solo hell, or outside of like isolated incidences, and really kind of like bloom in front of everybody. And Lai, I feel like, should be there because, again, it's the changing of the guard. Lai Psycho has been a anti-hero for Earth for a very long time. And I think if he were to see some of these characters and see that, I really can retire, or I can have my NPC, my legacy trained with these people, and then you really can just go on your farm and sip your water until you cross the rainbow bridge. I feel like that would be a cool insight for that character with these guys. But yeah, I mean, this was a great Dragon Ball Z ass fight. The scatter shot. Honestly, when the scatter shot came out, I was like, oh, it's fucking done. Like this ends it. And it's crazy, right? Like scatter shot is a thing that has never ended a fight until right now. I think we can put a pin on it. It is I mean, this log was done 10 days ago, but it is April the 23rd. Scattershot has finished a fight in the Dragon Ball universe. So yeah, I feel like that's great. And Yugen now is tier 1 and he gets his own master slot. So I want to see more badassery from his school of fighting. And now that we kind of have that initial bout out of the way, I do think it's time that these people meet up with the person that invited them here. So as a role player, I'm excited for that, and as an admin, I'm excited to see where this story goes. So good job, gentlemen, and I will catch you guys all on the chat channel.